Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to do something a little bit different today, and we'll start with our guest, who is going to speak to us by video teleconference from Kinshasa. And our guest today, we're very fortunate to have with us Khassim Diagne, the acting special representative of the Secretary General for the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and he will brief you on the latest developments there. As you're well aware, we issued a statement yesterday on it, strongly condemning yesterday's fatal attack on the peacekeepers serving in the UN mission MONUSCO. And with that, let me turn the floor over to Khassim. Khassim, can you hear us?
Yes, Farhan. Good evening from Kinshasa. Can you hear me?
Yes, and I can see you on one of the
Hello?
screens. Could you please put Khassim on the screen at the front podium? Thanks. Thanks a lot. Okay, Khassim, hold on just one second, and we'll get the visual of you up, and you can proceed.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good to see you. Nice seeing you around.
Good to see you, Farhan. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Good to see also family and friends in the room.
Hold on one second. Just one second, please. Okay. All right. I think. I believe they can see you on the televisions where we're trying to get you up on the screen in the room. But please get started, and we'll have the visuals of you up in all of the various screens as pretty soon. But yes, great to see you, and please, Khassim, get started with your own briefing.
Right. Thank you very much, Farhan, and thank you for the opportunity of this of contributing and participating in the noon briefing. I just wanted to perhaps give you a couple of updates of the situation we're facing here on the ground in Eastern Congo. I'm speaking to you from Kinshasa simply because I'm acting representative while waiting for the SRSG to return. But I'm normally based in Goma, but I'm in touch with colleagues almost on an hourly basis. So we've gone through two intensive, of course, tragic days, Monday and Tuesday, and of course the culmination of the violence and the tragedy resulted in the killing of three of our brave peacekeepers, two Indians of the formed police unit, and one Moroccan from the contingent, the military contingent, and of course another Egyptian colleague from the police also wounded. So again, as Farhan said, you've seen the Secretary General's statement on this tragedy, and we once again express our deepest condolences to the families and the government of India and Morocco, and we will not leave any stone unturned to get to the bottom of it, to the investigation. This was clearly an hostile act against our troops, and as you know, this may be a war crime. Now, the situation today can be described as a normal fragility, if you wish, because with the advocacies we've made with the government since Monday, the Prime Minister, there have been some reinforcement of national security forces on the ground, securing our bases and installations. We've also reinforced troops from our own contingents to ensure that security is restored. And yesterday, we were very pleased last night, although a bit late, that the governor of the North Kivu province issued a strong statement calling for demonstrators to move out of the streets and banning all sorts of demonstrations from the street. So that was also quite an important development. We do have certain pockets of still, I would call, insecurity, particularly in South Kivu, in Uvira territory in particular. But I'm told a few minutes ago that things are now getting increasingly under control. We will not, of course, let our guards off. We continue to remain extremely vigilant and extremely cautious because this situation may develop further. But as of now, I can report to you we don't have any other big problems. Of course, the priority is continue to safeguard our installations, make sure that we also investigate all those the killings, particularly the peacekeepers, but also joint investigation with the government to determine what happened to the civilians who were allegedly shot. And as I said yesterday to the national authorities, we do not have any evidence that MONUSCO troops were firing at civilians. But again, we want to make sure that we do an investigation with the government to determine exactly where the shooting came from. And we have the capacity to do so. We have our UNPOL, United Nations Police, but also the National Congolese Police to do this. Now, going into what we have as operations, we of course face now challenges because most of our operations, particularly on the civilian side, because we've asked a civilian to stay home, to work from home, so it's going to get increasingly difficult to undertake certain civilian activities. But of course, we have some experience from COVID, so we'll try and apply that experience in making sure we have business continuity and continuing our work in terms of community engagements, child protection, the DDR process, and other sort of civilian activities. In relation to the force, they are still very active. They are, continuing the patrols, although in some areas a bit difficult. They're also continuing to work with the FRDC as part of the mission's mandate to protect civilians, but also to bring them support in terms of the neutralizations of the armed groups. And our priority, as I said, continues to remain the protection of civilians, to guarantee the safety of our staff, but also to safeguard our installations. The special representative herself is coming back tomorrow evening because of the urgency of the situation. And as soon as she's here, I'll be moving back myself to over the weekend. And we are actually also preparing for the visit of Undersecretary General Mr. Lacroix, who would be accompanied by the military advisor, General Job, as well as the police commissioner, Mr. Luis Carrillo, and some colleagues from the Department of Operations. So Farhan, let me leave at that. I just want to make sure I leave also enough room for colleagues to ask for questions and clarification. Once again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Khassim. And thank you for being respectful of leaving enough time for our questioners. It's a great practice for all of our guests. So I'll turn the floor over first to Edie, letterer from AP.
Thank you very much for doing this briefing on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. Welcome, and we appreciate it. I have a couple of quick follow-ups and then a question. When is Undersecretary General Lacroix arriving? And is he going to be going to Goma directly, or will he be in Kinshasa first? And do you have a definite count of the number of civilians killed? My question is, you said that things are getting under control. Could you give us a picture of, for instance, what the situation is like today at UN facilities in Goma and in Butembo, if I pronounced it correctly, where the killings of the members of the peacekeeping force took place yesterday? Thank you.
Thank you, Edith. On your first question, Mr. Lacroix is arriving on Friday night from Mali. And the sketch of the plan we have is that he will spend 1 or 2 days here in Kinshasa, meeting, of course, with officials because he's arriving in Kinshasa, his point of entry. And then we have planned for him to travel to Goma with a special representative, myself, and the force commander and other officials. But that's a tentative plan, but definitely we are making plans for him to visit both Kinshasa for the engagement with the political leadership, but also to engage in the ground with our operations. On your question regarding normality, what I said was essentially it's a fragile normality, meaning that traffic has resumed in town, people going out to their businesses, and shops are open, the rest of it. Now, in terms of the facilities, at the UN facilities, they are open, but as I said, because we've asked staff to operate from home, except critical staff, such as medical personnel, those who are working in certain specific IT technology, the security officers and others whose work require them to be physically at the site, those are there. And we have 3 bases in Goma, which are fully operational. And of course, our force headquarters colleagues, because these are the military officers coordinating and police coordinating the entire security operations in the field, because from Goma, they are handling the management of military operation in other locations. In Butembo, the facility where the attack took place, which is the Moroccan camp, is there. Of course, they are largely now confined with the reinforcement they receive from Beni. They're largely confined to the camp, and they are now working with the FARDC and the police to ensure that no further attacks takes place. The civilian component of the workforce of Butembo was now relocated temporarily in Beni, which is 2 hours away from that place because, of course, of the incidents of yesterday. And in relation to the mortal remains, of course, of our colleagues, they've been transferred now to Beni. We're looking at arrangements for these remains to go back quickly to their families in India and Morocco. Thank you.
And the number of civilians killed, is there?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes. The government, when we had a meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister and the government, the Minister of Interior put the death toll at 15, 7 in Butembo, civilian Congolese, 3 of our peacekeepers, of course, and then 5 here in Goma. That's the government statistics.
Okay. Yes, please.
Including, by the way, from the government in Goma, he said one of the killed, the 5, is an army officer who received a stray bullet.
Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you, Abdullah Imasi from Al Arabi TV. Thank you for being with us today and hearing from you on the ground. My question, have you trying to reach out to the protesters or those who represented them in order to, and asking them about what they want, what are their demand? I mean, is there any attempt for a direct dialogue with the protesters in order to de-escalate the situation? Also, my second question, can you give us more highlight about the situation of the Moroccan mission there, Moroccan forces there? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I would distinguish, when we talk about protesters, we are distinguishing between peaceful protesters, active, and engaged civil society groups against what I would define clearly as people who are looters, because clearly those that have entered our bases, particularly the regional, the RVA, there is a base called RVA, which is Régie des Voies Aériennes, which is a base that belongs to the aviation authorities. That base is basically where we have our warehouses, our store for food rations and equipment. So essentially, that's where they focus their efforts. And clearly, they were their intention was to take away the goods. And we saw images on social media of people carrying. Sorry, the line. We saw images of people carrying bags of rice and goods, dry rations. They could not get. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Yeah, there was some noise here on my side. I'm sorry. So we could see them carrying bags of rice, dry rations, and the rest. They could not get to the frozen goods store, which has the largest, of course, consignment of goods. So clearly, they were trying to get away with a lot of equipment, and they vandalized a lot of cars which were in the yard, etc., etc. Now, that's the category of protesters I wouldn't even call them protesters, I would say looters and criminals. And then, and those were largely also infiltrated, we have evidence, by gangs, armed groups. And that's the group that we agreed with the government that we need to identify those who are involved and make sure that they're brought to justice. And it's the same group, that type of group, that fired at our colleagues in Butembo and killed 3 of them. So, but on the other side, you also now have groups that want to discuss, and talk about transition and talk about what MONUSCO can do in terms of protection of civilians. And we've been engaged with such groups for a long time, and they've never been violent. So we need to really distinguish between that. Now, the main demand of many of these groups, the peaceful ones, is really, the hardliners, of course, they get into that, is MONUSCO, should leave DRC. So the conversation was having, we said, yes, if you like us to leave, we will do so, but we already have a platform and we already have a strategy with the government of a transition strategy, and we need to look into that. And if we have a combined effort with the government, this move will take place. And let me just give you an example on transition. We just left the province of Tanganyika on 30th June, and that was part of the transition plan that was adopted and signed and approved by the Security Council last year in September. And we did this in a very, very peaceful and gradual manner. So I think we need to go to those basics. And I would really definitely say that we have 2 type of protesters, those who are intending on looting and those who want to discuss seriously. On the situation of Moroccans, I've spoken to the sector commander. They're in good spirits. This is an unfortunate event, of course, and we'll continue to pray for the deceased and solidarity with the family. The ambassador of Morocco also, I've reached out to him yesterday. Now we are just working towards making sure that the remains of our colleagues go back quickly to their home country.
Okay, James?
James Bays from Al Jazeera. I've got a couple of quick-fire questions, just things I want you to clear up, and then I've got a bigger question. On the death of protesters, you said that there's no evidence the UN shot any of them. Looking at a Reuters report, I quote, a Reuters reporter saw UN peacekeepers shoot dead 2 protesters in Goma. So can you just address that, and what were the rules of engagement? Did they have permission to shoot to kill? You are, as you know probably better than anyone else, a long, long way away from Goma right now, although you're normally based in Goma. So who is actually in charge right now in eastern Congo? You talked about people being redeployed around various cities in eastern Congo, but did any UN personnel, whether they be peacekeepers or others, get deployed out of the country? Did anyone go across the border in Rwanda? And then my big question, you talk about some of these as being looters and criminals. and some being genuine protesters. You live in Goma most of the time. What's your view? I mean, is the UN still welcome among the local population there?
Thank you very much, James. On the Reuters paper and article, we've seen that. And in fact, this was why we went to the government and said, look, we need to have a quick forensic autopsy, toxicology, whatever you name it. And we have capacity because we have the UN police, scientific police, with the police. And in fact, as I am speaking, we are making arrangement to dispatch, if we don't have the capacity in Goma, doctors from Kinshasa to go and undertake this work so that we can get, literally extract the bullets, analyze them, see that, because from a UN perspective, we can trace all our weapons, our bullets, all of that. So that's why we want to get to the bottom of it, and we will do that. And if it's the UN shooting, we will know. I can tell you that from where I was sitting since Monday, I've been in regular touch with the acting force commander, who's a force chief of staff, General Kobo from South Africa, and we spoke at length about the use of force. They were restrained. They used all available means. And as I said to our Congolese counterparts, if we had shot James, it would have been a disaster because there were thousands of people, climbing the walls, getting into the compound. So I can tell you that clearly the UN did not shoot. There were warning shots fired in the air to disperse the protesters, and this couldn't do the trick. So basically, we had to really call on the DRC government to say, come please. And so we will get to the bottom of it and clarify this. Now, we have very many senior colleagues. I have my deputy, I have the head of office Goma, I have the force chief of staff in Goma. So we have senior people and behind. I just came to Kinshasa simply because when the SRAGs go, and since this is a capital, I have to interact with the authorities because, we have to deal with the government here also at the central level, but I've been in touch, with technology and all of that, we are around. Now, no, I can confirm that there was no call for any relocation of staff outside the country. If some people may have taken their own liberty, taking their leave to go, what we advise, and we had a meeting with the UN country team, by the way, this was not just a MONUSCO decision. We had what we call the senior management team, which is a security team that meets together. And what we had decided as measures was, first of all, we should work from home. And this was as early as Sunday evening last week when we decided that Monday we should work from home. Secondly, we have instructed that those who are on leave currently outside the country should stay where they are. My own personal assistant, who's in Canada, I had to ask her to stay where she was because the situation is volatile. And thirdly, we also encourage those who were going on leave, maybe they could, fast track it if they were going to leave on Monday or on Wednesday, because Ethiopian Airlines flies every day. We said, take the flight on Monday. And then we also decided to freeze all external missions to Goma as a precaution. And to be honest, these precautions of asking people to work from home, to do this and that, was I think, the right decision to make, because you can well imagine if these protesters entered the compound and found staff in their offices, and I can share with you pictures of this looting, they would have even killed civilian personnel. God forbids.
Okay, and I believe there was
Sorry, the final part of my question, as someone who lives in Goma, do you think, the protesters,
Yes.
you say some of them are
Yes.
criminals, but do you think people still want you there? Are you still welcome?
Absolutely, James. The vast majority of staff, of the civilians. In fact, I've received so many messages yesterday at the press conference where I was mentioning that with the government, where I was mentioning that we have a transition plan to leave. I can show you the number of messages saying to me, if MONUSCO leaves, it is a disaster. Now, of course, we do understand the frustration, the impatience, and we have to manage expectation. I think one of the things that I heard, the best sort of quote I heard last night was a discussion with the Security Council where the ambassador of Brazil at the end said, well, all of this actually needs to be discussed in the context where he feels the population doesn't understand much about the mandate. And perhaps we as a mission, as the United Nations, we need to do some work of clarification or better communication. But I can tell you, James, the vast majority of people, because a lot of people see the UN mission there as the military, which is, of course, the bulk of our work here. But there is a lot of civilian work being done which goes unnoticed. All these child soldiers we're separating from armed groups, these disarmed combatants we are integrating in society, the community projects that we're implementing. There are areas where we go, if MONUSCO did not put up lighting in the streets, there would be a lot of criminal activities going on. So we need perhaps on our side and to do some self-criticism, evaluation, and see how can we then make it more visible, that type of work we're doing, to balancing it with the lack of, to manage it with expectation on the security side. And believe me, one of the discussions we are having also with Congolese, he said, look, we have been in many more provinces than the 3 that are left. Back in 2000, 2002, I think we were in 10 provinces. We're now down to 3. And these are the most complicated provinces, Ituri, ADF with Beni, and now M23. Thank you.
Thanks. We have a question on the virtual screens from Michelle Nichols. Michelle?
Thank you, Farhan, and thank you for the briefing. This is Michelle Nichols from Reuters. I hope you can hear me okay. There's a bit of feedback. Okay, it's gone. I just wanted to take the opportunity to ask you a little bit more about the broader security situation in Eastern Congo, particularly in relation to M23. Could you describe for us how much of a threat M23 now poses? And concerns have been raised, obviously, about Rwandan involvement. What evidence has the UN seen of Rwandan support for M23? Thank you.
Well, I refer you back, Michelle, thank you very much for the question. Refer you back to what we've said in the council, what the SRSG said in the council a couple of weeks ago. This is a serious threat which needs to be dealt with seriously because this is now a group that is now occupying territory. And there is a cardinal principle in the UN that the territorial integrity and sovereignty of DRC must be respected at all times. In relations to foreign intervention, we have made our position very clear. The mission is not mandated or equipped to do investigations about that. All the evidence we have put at the disposal of the experts group, investigating on DRC, and that evidence is also at the disposal of the expanded joint verification mechanism of the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. So we have mandated bodies that would be more interested to look into this. So I would refer you to those bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Yes, Edie.
Thank you very much. One further question. You mentioned the issue of the need for better communications. What can MONUSCO actually do about this, since from what we've read, there are claims that there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation being spread, especially on social media. What can you do quickly to try and address this?
This is, thank you very much for the question. It's a continuous work. We are bombarded, literally bombarded with with a lot of disinformation. Yesterday, for example, to just give an example, somebody posted a picture saying that because of the insecurity, the Malawian government has asked its troops to withdraw and to leave tonight, last night. And they posted a picture which looked really real. So we really have to literally constantly get onto the social media. But we have a very dynamic strategic communication team working with headquarters to try and counter these fake news. It's an ongoing process. At the same time, at our meeting with the Prime Minister yesterday, we agreed that we need to enhance our joint communication. We do have a joint transition working group, and the idea is now to make sure that we do communicate regularly. Last night, for instance, I was invited with the Minister of Communication to do a joint briefing with the press. And of course, our main call was to call for calm, but also to try and explain what do we do together, because we are here at the invitation of the government. So that's our main partner for the communication, particularly the communication on transition, so that people understand that we do have a plan to gradually and responsibly exit from the DRC.
Okay, I see no further questions, so I would like once more to thank Khassim Diagne, the acting head of our mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Thanks again, Khassim, and good luck. Take
Thank
care.
you very much, Farhan.
Bye.
Greetings. Bye-bye.